Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nate Hamilton, and I'm currently an elementary school administrator here within Montgomery County Public Schools. And tonight I want to talk with you about how we can combat chronic absenteeism here in the district. As you know, MCPS prides itself in being leaders in equity and providing equal access to a quality education for all students. And if all truly means all, I'd like to suggest that we may want to change the way we're looking at attendance. So first, I want to start out by just talking about this current status quo in attendance in the state of Maryland as compared to the national landscape, and then digging into the local district here in MCPS. So just last year, nearly 27% of all students in Maryland were considered chronically absent. That is 7% higher than what it was back in 2018 prior to the pandemic. Nearly 35% of students came from kindergarten, which brought a real concern to Maryland state lawmakers and education leaders alike. And when we look at the national landscape, back in 2022, 29% of all students in the US were considered chronically absent. While Maryland did meet the top five in terms of their daily attendance rate, I'd like to suggest that the way we may be looking at the data and the daily attendance rate as compared to chronic absenteeism may be a little misleading. So the attendance rate can be misleading as compared to chronic absenteeism because a high average daily attendance rate can mask a significant number of students who are still missing a substantial portion of the school year. So just because a school may have a 90% daily attendance rate, if we look at that alone and don't look at the chronic absentee rate, we're failing to acknowledge that we have a large portion of students who still aren't attending school. So while our overall attendance rate stands at 92%, the reality is that 37,000 students are considered chronically absent, a slight decrease from 26% from the previous year. But again, if all means all, then we want to make sure that those 37,000 students also have an opportunity to have access to this quality education on a regular basis. As of March of this year, we have 33,000 students who are considered chronically absent. This is 4% higher than what we were 4 months ago, which means at this rate, we are on target to match, if not surpass, our numbers from last year, which is not a good sign. So, who is most impacted? Of the 33,000 students currently classified as chronically absent, approximately 23,000 are, that's almost half, 49%, 31% being Hispanic, and 18% being African American. This is the same demographic that makes up the majority of the district's underperforming students in regards to academic achievement. So when we talk about equity, if all really means all, we have to fight for these students that are fallen in the attendance gap. So, why do we need changes? The current policy as it stands has certain limitations, and we want to avoid the narrative that MCPS leadership prioritizes achieving favorable metrics like honors enrollment, graduation rates, and attendance over ensuring meaningful student education for all students. We should be careful to celebrate increased graduation rates because these rates are achieved through policies that compromise the educational quality of instruction in the classroom. So, these are a few things that I would say are some limitations to the current policy. So, number one, the expectations are lower at the elementary level. Tardies are not considered, and there's little to no enforcement for students that are chronically absent. Even at the secondary level, the tardy is that an absent policy masks actual attendance problems and inflates attendance rates. The removal of consequences for absenteeism has led to widespread student truancy, and when students are absent, they must make up classwork that they've missed. The mandatory 50% rule for assignments, regardless of completion, diminishes academic accountability. Then, the requirement for two-way parent communication before assigning zeros creates an unrealistic burden on teachers and incentivizes parents to stop communicating with school teachers. Parents and students are not held accountable for lack of attendance, leading to a disregard for time, sensitive information, and work completion. So these are just some of the limitations with our current policy, which hasn't been updated since October of 2023. So we talk about systemic inequities impacting and affecting attendance. Chronic absenteeism starts at the elementary level. At the current MCPS policy sets some students with high absentee rates before they even go to middle school. At this point, they already have established poor attendance habits, and parents struggle to adjust to the new demands at the secondary level. If the expectations are consistent across the board, we can reach these parents a lot earlier to help improve their absentee rate. This necessitates the need for systemic changes. So, what does the research say? The literature on school attendance highlights multiple factors contributing to absenteeism, including socioeconomic conditions, school environment, and policy frameworks. The research also offers insights into potential intervention strategies. For example, Rogers and Feller's 2018 study demonstrates the effectiveness of targeting parents' misbeliefs through personalized information in reducing absenteeism. So there's some parents that just don't share the same values that the school district has when it comes to attendance. And we want to change those rooted beliefs so that we can be on the same page, because we know that none of this can happen without the parent partnership. So, my understanding, informed by these sources, underscores that absenteeism is not merely a matter of students skipping school, but a complex issue rooted in socioeconomic disparities, peer dynamics, mental health challenges, and the very structures that are within this large school system as a whole. So, here are the proposed revisions. First, we want to create guidelines that are consistent from elementary through high school that promote the same expectations regarding absence, tardies, and early departures. Then we want to promote strong home to school collaborations by establishing open communication channels and providing resources to families to support their children's regular attendance. Next, we want to invest in a robust data system that uses new metrics for accurate attendance tracking. After that, we want to ensure policies are responsive to diverse needs and unique circumstances of individual student groups, moving away from a one size fits all approach. And then finally, we want to outline a partnership with certain agencies and the truancy court so parents clearly understand the consequences that come with chronic absenteeism. Now let's take a look at how these changes will improve the educational experiences for all students. Like I said before, it starts at the elementary school level. These formative years lay the groundwork for a child's entire educational journey and beyond. Foundational literacy acquired during these early years is not merely about learning to read and write, it's about establishing a lifelong relationship with learning. Consistent attendance at elementary school reinforces the importance of punctuality and commitment, setting a positive mindset towards education. Missing classroom instruction at this critical age can create significant gaps in understanding, hindering future academic success. Then, looking at that homeschool collaboration, strong homeschool collaboration and open communication channels are fundamental for creating optimal learning experiences for all students. Regular dialogue between parents and teachers builds a supportive community, boosts student motivation, and facilitates the identification and resolution of barriers to learning. Investing in advanced data systems with precise attendance tracking and analysis enables schools to proactively identify at-risk students, implement targeted interventions, and optimize resource allocations, ultimately fostering a new focused and supportive learning environment for all. By minimizing classroom disruptions and empowering teachers with real-time data, these systems contribute to a culture of accountability and improve overall school climate. When we look at the diverse needs of all of our students here in the district, we want to move away from the one-size-fits-all approach and ensure policies are responsive to the diverse needs of individual students. It's crucial for creating equitable and effective learning experiences for all. For marginalized students, those living in poverty, or those facing access and opportunity gaps, a standardized approach often exacerbates existing inequities. Many students experience chronic absenteeism due to factors beyond their control, such as a lack of transportation, unstable housing, family responsibilities, and/or health issues. So let's talk about enforcement. Clearly outlining partnerships with agencies and the truancy court to inform parents of the consequences of chronic absenteeism fosters a culture of accountability and consistent attendance, ultimately improving learning experiences for all students. This approach acts as a deterrent, encouraging parental engagement and support. It ensures consistent expectations and minimizes classroom disruptions. By proactively addressing truancy, schools can allocate resources more effectively, reinforce the importance of education, and create accountability for all stakeholders, students, parents, and the school system. Now let's talk about the funding, implementation, and evaluating these changes. Implementing revised attendance policies may incur costs related to staffing trainings, data system upgrades, and increased interventions. However, reducing chronic absenteeism can lead to significant savings through improved student outcomes and decreased need for remedial services. Successful implementation of the new attendance policy requires establishing a timeline, providing staff with training, formulating detailed procedures for monitoring attendance, and schools will engage with parents to communicate the changes and provide necessary resources for support. So we'll start out with staff trainings and developments. Then we'll dive into a parental accountability measure, which will hold parents accountable when their students are absent. Then we'll talk about community engagement and collaboration, communication and public support. We'll implement a root cause analysis, resource allocation, and then just an overall understanding that this is a collective effort. It's going to take continued analysis along with collaboration with parents and families and establishing partnerships that will essentially assist students' academic growth, which starts with coming to school every day. How will we evaluate it? So, evaluating the revised attendance policy's effectiveness necessitates robust metrics, including tracking changes in absenteeism rates, student engagement levels, and academic performance. We'll also need to get feedback from stakeholders, which will provide valuable insights into the policy's impact and effectiveness. So I leave you with this call to action: addressing the unseen crisis of chronic absenteeism through consistent policies, family engagement, and improved data systems is essential for ensuring that every student has the opportunity to succeed academically. By implementing these proposed changes, we can create an inclusive educational environment where all students thrive.